Hello everybody, today is April 16th and the topic I'm going to discuss today are business structures. A number of individuals have asked questions about partnerships, not really fully understanding what a partnership is compared to a corporation or perhaps compared to a common ownership or a co-ownership. So in essence, partnerships are used quite a lot in real estate transactions, but before I jump into that, let's talk a little bit about the different types of business structures that are generally used in Canada and how each may or may not apply in your situation. So first of all, the simplest one we have is a sole proprietorship. This is often a self-employed individual. This can be done as well for real estate. An individual can hold multiple real estate properties, and these properties have no partners and have no legal form of ownership other than the individual themselves. In essence, what's got to be remembered is that the liability of either the business or the enterprise is the liability of the individual. And this is why many people shy away from owning any substantial amounts of real estate in their own name. And of course, operating a business in their own name, for in the event that there was a claim against the business, then the individual's assets could also be seized, or even a lien could be put against them if the creditors chose so. The second type that we've discussed a little bit in the past few videos is a corporation. A corporation offers liability protection to the individual from seizure of their personal assets, as well as a corporation is a separate entity taxed as a corporation at different tax rates, and there's advantages and disadvantages to that. We've touched upon that on a prior video, but again, we can always come back and discuss it at more length if there's interest. The third type of structure is an unlimited liability corporation. This is something that's taxed as a corporation but does not offer liability protection to the shareholders. This is not something we see in Quebec. Often Nova Scotia has these, British Columbia has these. There are specific structures used in the medical profession and in situations where the individual is the corporation and therefore the individual cannot try to avoid responsibility for acts created by the corporation. We don't really see these in the real estate space. Getting to the matter of joint ventures. Joint ventures is essentially something that is used in Quebec quite often. It's not so used in the space of real estate acquisitions, but it can be. A joint venture is essentially any agreement where two people, individuals, corporations, trusts, and so forth, agree to contribute either goods, property, money, or services towards an outcome that's going to generate profit. We see this a lot amongst businesses, where one business will provide perhaps the capital, the other business will provide the know-how, and they'll do a venture, perhaps for a limited period of time, towards securing business and earning profits. It's not something I see very often in real estate. It's interesting to know, though, that there's no statute in Canada that governs joint ventures. They're essentially governed by private agreements between the individuals in place or the corporations in place. So let's jump to the meat of the subject, which are partnerships. So without getting too technical in this short video, the general categories are general partnership, limited partnership, limited liability partnership, and what's called an undeclared partnership. So let's talk about the three of them, or four of them. So a general partnership, in essence, is that the partners have unlimited liability with respect to what goes on in the partnership. And again, as I said before, without having the corporation or another type of protection, a general partnership leaves you open to any kind of lawsuit and any kind of creditor claim at an individual level. What's more problematic in a general partnership is that any individual partner can obligate the entire partnership and commit that partnership to any course of action, even without the knowledge of the other general partners. What does that mean? So if two of us are members in a general partnership, we're both general partners, and one of us decides to sign a contract. Even if we have an agreement between the two of us that says that all contracts have to be agreed upon unanimously and so forth, with respect to third parties, that agreement is null and non-binding, which means that the third party can assume that if you're acting as a general partner, you have the right to commit the partnership to whatever act you want. And if there's a problem later on, they can pursue either one of the partners, joint several liability, and it would be up to you as an individual to countersue your other partner for saying, I wasn't aware of that. As you can see, that can be problematic. So we have the concept of limited partnership. So a limited partnership is that a limited partner has limited liability with respect to what they've contributed to the partnership. So they're not exposed to everything. So what we often see in real estate is a limited partnership where the individuals are limited partners and the corporation that's set up to protect everybody is a general partner. It's something that can be used to try to mitigate liability, yet use a partnership as a vehicle to transact business. A limited liability partnership, I won't get into that very much in this video. It's not something that's really available in Quebec. British Columbia and Ontario have this. They're used often in situations where the limited partnership doesn't offer the protection that's needed, and they need something a little different, a little more sophisticated. In Quebec, you have what's called an undeclared partnership. This is very similar to a joint venture. In essence, it's a partnership between individuals where they haven't declared it to the public. It's an agreement between them. And Quebec kind of see this as joint venture, and it's something that's not really recommended. In my case, in my situation, specifically when we're dealing with situations where we're dealing in real estate. So let's just take a step back and discuss a co-ownership versus a partnership. A co-ownership is two individuals getting into business together for real estate to own and operate a rental property. A co-ownership does not have the legal status of a partnership, yet is taxed in a very similar way. Whether you have a partnership or a co-ownership, you pick up the revenues and expenses on your personal tax return, and the partnership or co-ownership does not pay income tax. What's different is in the way you can add or remove partners from a partnership, whereas when you want to do it as a co-ownership, as I mentioned in a previous video, you need to actually go and have title either added or removed from the property where you're adding a co-owner. So what's interesting is that in Canada, provinces, not the federal government, have exclusive jurisdiction over partnerships. So and this is really important in real estate, because if you want to acquire property in a province, Ontario or BC or Nova Scotia, it's strongly recommended that if you're entering into a partnership, that you have a lawyer from that province draft the partnership agreement, simply because there's specific rules in each province that govern how the partnership needs to be addressed, and you really are not doing yourself a service by hiring a, for example, Quebec lawyer to do that unless the Quebec lawyer specifically has experience in that other province. Partnerships in general can be verbal. You do not need to hire a lawyer to draft the partnership agreement. However, this is really not recommended. As you know, anything verbal is very hard to prove, meaning that if you have an arrangement and for some reason one of the partners does not respect the agreement, then what's going to happen is that you're going to find yourself in a litigation where he said, she said, I said, she said, and good luck trying to convince a judge of what is really going on. The partnership does not pay tax, as I said before, but let's just look at the tax perspective. Some partnerships need to file a partnership return. I'll call it a tax return. It's a disclosure return. It's a T5013, and those of you who are in limited partnerships or as investments may have gotten these slips. So this is in essence the partnership declaring to the government that there's a partnership in place, and that this is the income and expenses earned on the partnership, and that the percentage of this partnership that's owned by the individual partners. We see this commonplace in resource and mining, and that's because the credits or the deductions available are supercharged depending on what you've invested in and how you've done it. And we see this a lot with flow-through shares. So these are maybe sophisticated investments that you're not all aware of, but if you have a financial advisor, you feel free to reach out to them to see if you can invest in those as a tax advantageous investment to try to offset your other taxes. Just out of a question of note, in order for a T5013 to be filed, you have certain criteria. So not everybody's caught by these rules. So first of all, the revenues and expenses have to be $2 million or more. It doesn't mean the revenues have to be, doesn't mean the expenses have to be, it's the combination of both. So in a nutshell, if you had $1 million plus $1 million, technically you would be over that threshold. Or if you have over $5 million in assets. So this can be a very easy threshold to pass, because if you're a number of individuals together and you buy a building worth $5 million, you're caught there. Alternatively, if at any time the partnership has either partners, other partnerships or corporations or trusts or anything other than an individual involved, de facto you have to create T5013. You have no choice. If the minister, of course, requests you to file, you have no choice to file. Or if you've got resource expenses through flow-through shares and so forth, so like I mentioned before. So in essence, should you use a partnership? Well, a partnership agreement will have a contract which is going to dictate exactly how the arrangement in real estate is going to work between yourself and your other partners. In a co-ownership, can you have an undeclared partnership, which is more like a joint venture, which is really like a co-ownership? Yes, but once again, we want to have it all documented so that if ever there's some sort of a dispute, that the individual can understand what their rights are, and if they have to go to court to fight for those rights, there will be no question as to what was the intention. Partnerships are regularly used amongst individuals or partnerships or corporations involving in large projects. You'll almost never see a large real estate project without some sort of a partnership agreement or a partnership implication. It allows for the facilitation of quite a lot of the operational issues, as well as providing the limited protection, limited liability to the individual partners, while throwing all of the risk upon corporate partners, which in essence oftentimes are just shell companies set up for that purpose. When we're dealing with cross-border situations, we will often see the use of these multi-tiered structures to protect individuals from lawsuits and other litigation. When individuals are buying property amongst themselves, let's just say under $5 million, really a partnership may be a bit of overkill, but yet I strongly recommend to have a written agreement amongst yourselves as to what each person is required to contribute initially and ongoing, as well as the exit strategy in the event that something doesn't go well for one of the partners and they need to sell or get out, what that mechanism is going to be and how that partner will be able to recoup their funds. So I'm going to stop here right now because the video has already gone 12 minutes, a little longer than I'd hoped. This is obviously a topic that I've just touched the surface of, and I can go into many, many more details. But before I do any of that, I'd like to know if there's any real interest in this. And if there is, I will do it. But as I suspect, perhaps this is just more than most individuals need who are just getting started in real estate. And maybe on an ongoing video, I'll just stick more to the basic things that affect us all on a month-to-month or year-to-year basis. So thank you very much. I wish you all a great day and happy investing.